Toastmasters, how we doing today? All right?
Yay.
Good to be here to talk to you on this pre-Valentine Day. And Patty did a great job of talking to you about some smells, and I want to talk to you about some sounds. And I thought about doing this speech on speeches because this objective in this project is vocal sounds. And as I thought about it, there's a lot of speeches in history that are really memorable and interested me. However, it would take forever, obviously, to recount all the speeches. But, you know, in the last, I don't know, 50 years, possibly 100 years, I guess since early 1900s, they've been able to record sound with the phonograph and so forth. And so you can actually go on the internet and you can find some famous speeches. So I picked out a few that really interested me. And I started to focus on the distinctiveness of the human voice. I don't know if you ever thought about this before, but the voice is so unique to each person. And I remember when my son Stephen was about 4 years old, he came down the stairs one morning and he had a really bad cold and he could hardly speak. And he said to me, "Dad, my voice is not my voice." And for some reason that just stuck in my mind. It was so observant of him. And you know, even today, I still like to listen to the evening news, the different newscasters and their voices, and how, you know, they'll all come on and say, "Good evening," and then tell you all the reasons why it isn't good evening. But some voices I observed in speeches, one that I found on a CD in a book called Say It Plain, was by Booker T. Washington, who was, of course, a black man, an educator who was born a slave, and he actually made this speech in 1895 and then recorded it in 1904 when the technology was available to do that. But his speech was in Atlanta, and it was to primarily white Southern plantation owners. And you can imagine a former slave standing there only 30 years after the close of the Civil War, speaking to those people, powerful people. And here he was, Booker T. Washington, a black man in America. But his words, his voice was a voice of instruction. And he told a story about a ship lost at sea, two ships really. And when they met, the one ship that had been lost sent out a signal to the other ship and said, "Water, water, we need water, we're dying." And the other ship came back with a signal that said, "Cast down your bucket where you are." And the ship, the distressed ship, perplexed, sent another signal and said, "Water, we need fresh water, give us water." And the signal came back again several times from the captain of the other ship and said, "Cast down your bucket where you are." And so finally the perplexed ship cast their bucket down and drew up fresh, pure water out of the mouth of the Amazon River. And Washington went on to use that analogy to bridge this cultural divide between white and black, and how we should cast down our bucket where we are and become proficient at making peace and utilizing what we actually have at our disposal instead of what we usually do, which is complain about what we don't have. Another speech that I love is, of course, Franklin D. Roosevelt's speech at his inauguration in 1933, where the nation was suffering under the stock market crash and an economy much like we have today as we've come through. And his speech was facing economic annihilation. However, FDR was able to make this memorable quote when he said, "I want to assert my firm belief that the only thing that we have to fear is fear itself." And that brought comfort to our nation. Another speech I thought of was Mahatma Gandhi, a famous peacemaker from India, who in 1931 spoke in London about the supreme power and how faith transcends reason. Gandhi also said this that I love. He said, "Be the change that you want to see in the world," so that we can take his advice and not be part of the problem, but be part of the solution. A voice of courage that I remember was JFK in his inaugural speech in 1961, facing nuclear annihilation in the world and civil rights disruptions at home. JFK made that famous line when he said, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but ask what you can do for your country." And the final speech I looked at that I love so much, of course, is Martin Luther King Jr.'s famous speech in 1963 in Washington, D.C. As King stood in the shadow of Lincoln's statue 100 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, MLK stood there and he declared war on prejudice. You know, prejudice is the lazy man's disease, it's been said. When you're judging someone based on the color of their skin and not the content of their character. And I just love that speech as King escalates his rhetoric and begins to say, "I have a dream that one day my children will live in that place, in that world where they're judged by their character. And they stand on the solid rock of justice." And he said that quotation, "Let justice roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream." I just want you to know today that some of these voices are what have helped to shape our nation and to make us the people that we are today. Thank you very much, Mr. Toastmaster.